So I guess what I would like to do is just sort of talk a little bit about my personal situation and how I arrived making a decision of conscience that I felt was absolutely necessary. So if you just, I guess if you bear with me as I sort of talk about my story here. I Up until August of this year, I was an officer candidate in the land element of the Canadian Forces. And I joined the forces in 2002 after deciding, like many who have made the decision to enlist, that the programs available for remuneration towards post-secondary study while serving full-time as a member of the regular force was just what I needed in order to finish my degree. Increasingly, that is a point that recruiters are focusing on as tuition climbs higher and higher for students. Definitely, it is a practical reality for people to pay for their tuition, and it suckers a lot of people into going into the armed forces, and going down that road, particularly when when we have a mission going on in Afghanistan, which has some serious problems with it. As a student of justice, my intentions were to use this time to later acquire employment within a level of the federal government or continue within the forces, which I was very much confident of and looking forward to definitely at the time. I served for, initially I joined the Navy in 2002 and served for 3.5 years aboard the Pacific Fleet flagship HMCS Algonquin. Desiring a change and more time for my studies, I transferred to the Army Reserves and applied for a commission as an infantry officer. I felt that by working at this level, I could use my skills in mediation and conflict resolution to advance the humanitarian emphasis of the Canadian mission in Afghanistan and possibly elsewhere. And I was very much looking forward to going to Afghanistan. I was hoping to get a place on a rotation by 2009, by the end of our commitment, if you want to call it that. The forces have members who work specifically to liaise with local authorities in determining economic and infrastructural needs and bringing NGOs forward to assist in their specific requirements. We all know, of course, the priority that has been given to this nature of work as the conflict in Afghanistan has grown more volatile and difficult to manage. As an infantry officer, I would be a leader, and my professional ability and responsibilities would include care and charge of men and women who are also very proud to be serving their country in their particular functions. I did have reservations, however, concerning the exact type of mission being conducted in Afghanistan, but was satisfied at the time that our role as a member of the NATO forces was to be effective in promoting humanitarian and infrastructure building priorities. Indeed, I hoped to secure a place on the rotation, as I've said, by 2009. And I felt that it was a crucial time in the history of Afghanistan, and that I guess I've gone through a period of education and awakening as well. But back then, I was definitely, I felt that the international community had a role to play in Afghanistan, and I definitely wanted to be part of that role. Of course, the nature of that role is definitely the issue for discussion. And I certainly have changed my perspective in many ways since then. My family did not support my view, however, in terms of wanting to go to Afghanistan. And I began to speak with them about my role in any mission so as to prepare them for any eventualities, which is a process that anybody who's any soldier or sailor or airman or airwoman goes through with their family before they go on deployment. With these discussions, I began to have a change in perspective and started to question the role of our government overseas. How did we fit into the American war on terror, and were we helping in an unjust and criminal conflict? Were we helping an unjust and criminal conflict with a runaway superpower intent on hegemony in the Middle East? In terms of were we helping them? As I prepared for summer training as an officer in New Brunswick, I thought about what my role might be in commanding individuals to go to their death in a conflict that I saw as ill-considered and in support of the U.S. global war on their runaway CIA henchmen. Was I willing to make decisions with the lives of my subordinates in the balance that would theoretically support the brutal history of American involvement in Iraq and the Middle East? My answer to that question slowly came to the surface as I was in the middle of coursing this summer. And it's a fairly hefty responsibility that people who are often quite young are saddled with in leadership positions within the Army. You're essentially given a group of people who you are responsible for, from making sure that their feet are in good condition to ultimately making sure that they're alive from one day to the next. And certainly, as someone being trained to be put into that position, I could really not go there simply because I didn't support the way that the mission was developing. And I really could not order or be part of ordering individuals to complete tasks that might result in their death, that ultimately was connected to a mission that I felt was absolutely wrong-headed and was ignoring many of the historical imperatives that were in operation in Afghanistan and indeed throughout the Middle East. So my decision was indeed a difficult one. I knew that there was going to be flack for it. I also knew that I'd gained some good friends from it as well. As I have been honored to work with many individuals in the Canadian Forces who brought superior levels of dedication and professionalism to their place of work from various backgrounds across the country. Strong-minded and selfless people who worked away from family for long periods and continued to serve even under challenging conditions. It was these people with which I had spoken to since March 2003 when the Iraq War began, and gained an understanding that not all Canadian Forces members supported the American global aggression and marched to unfettered militarism. And just as an aside, we can see in our country now the effects of unfettered militarism. That term, as we're beginning to purchase artillery rounds that cost $150,000 each, and we're beginning to go down that road. We're buying more and more expensive pieces of equipment, and this was really one of the things that was troubling for me, certainly as a citizen, was witnessing how easily the Conservative government found billions and billions of dollars for new pieces of military hardware that the Republican Party seemed to be requesting that we purchase, and it was seemingly taking 10 to 15 years to repair our healthcare system, amongst other things. And I saw some of those disparities and certainly began to question what it was that we were doing, and the change in nature of the Canadian identity that the Harper government was instituting. And that's why I felt that I couldn't be part of it anymore. And indeed, I felt that I could not study war anymore, and that I didn't want to.